It was a weekend full of World Cup qualifiers. Some things to take away. Positives. Scotland got a victory.
Hey,
Decent. It was on
victory?
par. It was on par to be the usual Scotland way of life, where we constantly pepper the opponent and then just set ourselves up for a massive daylight robbery and go home licking our wounds and expect.
How do you guys handle losses? Is it like fighting, drinking?
How do we handle winning?
Yeah, but I feel like winning is fighting,
How do we
drinking.
handle drawing?
I was going to say winning. I feel like winning in Scotland is probably more aggressive.
Everything involves. I mean, you're talking about a country that I told you about where we celebrate the birth of a firstborn baby in a family by sending the dad out to get hammered as the wife is still in the hospital. Oh, the baby's there? Oh, is he healthy? Pub. That's what happens. It's called wetting the baby's head. All right.
What is it in? Is it in Hot Fuzz or is it in Shaun of the Dead?
What one?
Where they go?
Oh yeah, that's Shaun of
wait for it all to blow over.
Yeah, it's a British thing.
Grab a pint, make it blow over.
But the main talking point from this clip is that Holland may actually miss out in another major competition. So we see they're struggling again. Let's take a look at their group. They did get a tough draw. They've got France who are leading at the table, not dropping a game yet so far. Looking good. They're definitely going to be a team I would expect to get to the latter stages of the World Cup already, in my opinion.
Shout out Belarus,
Yep.
Maria Ignatova.
I mean, yeah, shout out Belarus. I mean, the one thing I do want to talk about is it often seems like this is a long time away. It's not that long away. Like 2018 summer will be right upon us very soon, and that's why I'm already looking at teams in qualifiers. I mean, I got to do something to keep me interested in these games because, yeah, I miss the Premier League when it goes away. I miss La Liga.
Yeah, I do too.
But World Cup qualifiers are interesting when you start to see how these bigger teams are really falling flat in their face. Holland recently missed the Euros. They were heartbroken in the World Cup the last time when they lost out in penalty kicks. So it's since that loss that Holland have kind of not really bounced back, and they've been going through some transitions managerially. But if we look at their schedule upcoming, Jason, before we get into discussion, they've got some games to make up for it. But you lose to Bulgaria. In a group as tough as this, when you have Sweden who are picking up points and France dominating, can't lose those games. You're going to win at Luxembourg, and then it's going to come down to another vital game against France, and it will boil down to that last game against Sweden.
Well, that's where I look at it, and just unfortunately for them, you don't want to have to play Sweden in the last game. You would have much rather played Belarus or Bulgaria. Granted, Luxembourg, they have to play again as well. Look, I think it's really strange that in world football, and I know there's obvious reasons for this because 4 years between World Cups but still with the Euros, like a team like the Netherlands, like I'm surprised when I see teams like that lose form that quickly. They were Final Four I'm still in college basketball, but still Final Four in the World Cup in 2014, and they were doing things. It was funny because when you used to talk about the World Cup in 2014, like Arjen Robben was arguably one of the best players of the tournament, and you know what he's going to do. Yeah. And he was still doing it every single time. Now, also, there was Goose Hiddink, which was gone, and now Blind is gone, father of Daley Blind, Danny Blind, and of course, Daley pretty much kept saying, it's just an honor playing for my father. It's an honor playing with your father. Your father almost ran you out of possibly the tournament. Yeah. So, is this managerially, Francis? Is this a manager problem? Is this a formation problem? Is it tactics? Is it team chemistry? Do they need younger people? Do they need older people? Veteran presence? It's got to be something.
Well, they're changing the manager, of course. Danny Blind, who was a phenomenal, gifted footballer, has moved on. Holland have always been a staple of football for me. Like you look at some of the legends: Cruyff, Marco van Basten, Patrick Kluivert. The list goes on. There's so many phenomenal footballers that were gifted to the world through Holland, and they were known as producing some of the youngest talent, like Ajax themselves. They produced some of the best young footballers
in the
world. Suarez played with Ajax, but I'm talking about like through the youth system in Holland. Like there was an era where they had like Edgar Davids, Patrick Kluivert. Like these guys were all coming through this system, and then would eventually go on to be World Cup winners. And
legal marijuana produces great footballers. Is what you're saying.
Very true. Amsterdam, the home of some of the very best open cafes. We can go in and get yourself a nice weed.
Well, maybe they're just doing too much.
That's the line that they're walking on to try and figure out. But if they were to not make the World Cup, then that's when you really. Alarm bells are already going off. They missed the Euros, which when you look at it in context, if they would have used the World Cup as a springboard. They could have had every chance to win the Euros. Portugal won it without being the best team around. They won it on a more defensive style of football. Holland, I think, have had an aging generation kind of pass on, and they haven't really replaced it. Like Spain have admitted, all right, we can't keep up with the same sort of veteran players that got us that World Cup. We now need to move into a new generation where you allows for the likes of Koke to come forward and really take a more dominant role. You allow the younger players to kind of carry the torch of the Iniestas, the Javis of the world. Holland have had a similar transition, but they haven't had the same quality of players, I don't think. Like, they're still looking at Robin as being one of the most inspirational players. He's getting on a little bit, and his injuries are always a worry. Defensively, they've had question marks ever since they had some of the most dominant defenders, I think, around. Jaap Stam was a Manchester United legend, and I always remember him leading the back line. Holland. That's gone back a few years further back, but they were always a team that were frustrating to break down.
Historical clubs, not clubs, but our nations, when it comes to world football, they don't just fall. Like, Spain ain't missing a World Cup anytime soon.
Yeah. And
France ain't missing. Actually, France looks better this year than they did in 2014. But like, there are powerhouses that will not. I guess my question is, without Holland in the World Cup, does this rank amongst those of of missouts?
Yes, it would. If they like, the Euros is a big.
Like, could you imagine if Italy just missed the World Cup? I feel like this is kind of the same level.
The thing is we're trying to make these. We're trying to, like, when we looked at the group, we're like, they've got Sweden in there. They're a tough team. Like, Sweden,
but they're not better.
Cristiano Ronaldo delivered a devastating blow to Sweden to prevent them from getting to a World Cup not long ago. So yeah, they're a good team, but Holland are expected to be a dominant team. In the past, if you're talking 5-6 years ago, you see a group with France and Holland in it, you're just as well marking 1 and 2. It's just a battle between which one of them goes and remains superior. So it's apparently Louis van Gaal has been linked again with getting back into Holland. I miss him so much. I know he's been.
I miss him so much.
That position would be something that I'm sure he would like to go back into. After all, he was relatively successful with a team that I don't think were as good as those other teams he played against in the 2014 World Cup and missed out on penalties. So yeah, that could be a decision that they'd be looking into. I think they really need to go with a different approach, maybe a more youthful manager. Now, I'm struggling to think about who could really step in, because there's not a lot of Holland coaches, because most Holland like to have their nationals as well. Like, some countries go and have other coaches.
Like the locker room thing, possibly.
England have done it several times. With Sven-Goran Eriksson.
It's a great team to use.
Exactly.
You know? So look how well it's worked out for them. So, remember, I predicted them to win the Euros, and in my mind, they did.
England? They won our hearts. Wait, they didn't do that either.
If Louis van Gaal does get the job back, besides the fact that I will be ecstatic and possibly the only one, I want to do Breakfast with Louis, where I take like Monday morning clips of him in a press conference and have a conversation. Because could you imagine?
An easy segment to fill. I don't think much production would be needed. Just wait for his press conference to come out.
That's what I would do, and I would just cut up little clips to be like, Louis, how are the eggs? Well, you know, they simply did not play with any heart. I agree. So yeah, there's a couple of things that are going to be worrying for Holland. They really need to think about a replacement, and this needs to be at the forefront, as I'm sure it is, to try and get this team back to a major tournament. But there's some other couple of things that are going on. I want to take a look at Wales's group. So this is element B09. So Serbia leading the way, joint points with Ireland, and Wales not continuing their fine run in the Euros, drawing 4 games, yet to lose. But of course, they carried over another draw this weekend with Republic of Ireland. A game that was, I really wanted to address this really quick, because people will probably be asking, plagued by some nasty tackles. I feel awful for Seamus Coleman. I think he's a resilient, talented right back, and he's going to be on the sidelines for several months with a broken leg. Taylor came in horrifically. It was another one that was, I'm sure we'll throw up a screenshot here, but for your discretion advised, it's not pretty. His leg was dangling at one point. It was awful. And then it was another hefty tackle from an unlikely source of Gareth Bale, who smashed into the shins of John O'Shea. So I don't really know what got into the Wales team. They were just very late on their tackles. Was there some rivalry there? Yeah, there's always rivalry between teams that are playing against in that area of the world. Wales, England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Republic of Ireland. Poor internet connection. Lagging.
They're
hitting square at the right time.
Yes, and they're just,
but
it's the connection is carrying them through.
get better internet, Wales. Come on.
So yeah, it's a struggling thing for them, and I think that Gareth Bale, a lot of people defending his tackle, some people criticising it. There's no defence of Taylor's tackle. It's horrendous, and rightfully so. The last group, of course, to round it up is Group 08, just for my own.
Oh, I had to put this in.
Just devastation. So
I gotta be honest.
Still in with a chance.
I gotta be honest. For one, Slovakia and Slovenia definitely need to figure out a different flag because one of them has to just bite the bullet. It's the same flag. Come on. Secondly, this is a group that Scotland could make the World Cup. You have to be ecstatic.
I'm positive there's definitely some like real heartfelt meaning behind both flags that you've just offended two nations fully.
Come at me, bros.
I'm sure we'll move forward from it.
Look, so you can see Scotland stands out.
We need to take a victory
Big
against. We need to take a victory against England, which is going to be a tough test. But the way things panned out earlier in this group, we dropped points against unlikely teams like Lithuania, where we really should have won. And now we're going to have to face in defeat the teams that are above us to at least be in with a chance.
What team? I know technically though, but technically in this group, what team could Scotland not be? You don't got France, Italy, Spain in there. You got England, which I could see where England would play up to Scotland.
Yeah,
I could see where they would, just generally speaking, like if England played the way they play against Scotland, they played against other teams.
They'd probably
be much better. But by the way, Slovakia just getting shafted with a plus-minus goal differential of 7. And only 2 more points.
England haven't conceded a goal yet. The team looks, I mean, from what it's worth.
They play their youth. We're going to do something, though. Like, we can save England because we got another clip for later on Rooney, England's youth.
Yes. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail.
Stuff.
So a lot to take away from it, but the overarching theme is, will Holland miss another World Cup? So for those that are just tuning in, Holland and Netherlands, yeah, they're the same country. Comment below.
I knew that.